All right, class, we are going to create a soundscape using Adobe Audition for surround sound audio. I've loaded all of my wave files. I've made sure that they're all the same sample rate. They're all at 44 kilohertz and 16-bit, but I don't care if they're stereo or mono. That doesn't matter. I actually don't care if they're all loaded or not, but it's more helpful to make sure they're all loaded. What we're going to do, however, is multi-track mixing. File, new, and instead of saying audio file, we're going to say multi-track session. And when I do that, I'm going to call this last name, Bendis Surround Demo. And I want it to be 44 kilohertz, 16-bit. And instead of mono or stereo, we're going to do 5.1 because this is a surround sound demo. So these are the standards that we're going to be using, and I click on OK. And when I do that, it's going to get really fun in here because now I've got multi-tracks. And I've got multiple tracks here, and I've got track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4, track 5. Now anything that I would want to do individually to the clips, I would want to do that ahead of time. So if I wanted to make some, not louder and softer, but if I wanted to do something where I was going to do an echo or a reverb or a fade in or a fade out, I can do that to my individual files. I'm not going to worry about that right here. What I am going to do, though, is I'm going to grab the long marimba loop, which is, I think, 8 seconds long. Oh, my God, how long is that? And I'm going to drag it in over here, and there it is. And if I press play, now, unlike before, when I was editing the file, now I'm actually going to be editing the project file. The layers are in the project, and things that if I were to come over here where it says the gain, where it says volume, and I were to lower it by dragging it this way and try it again, that is not the original file. What that's telling me is that anything on this track, I'm going to lower the volume for. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste it a few times, and it will snap into place. So this way I just have a few seconds to work with. It's not a good loop. I know this because I didn't bother to make it a good loop. But let's take a listen. Great. Now I've got a nice stereo system up here. I can be doing this with headphones. It doesn't matter. What I do want to do is come over here to this little thing over there. Do you see that little box over there? If I double click on it, what it's going to show me is, it's going to show me the 5.1. It's going to show me the 5. So there are the speakers, left surround, left, right, and center. And by default, it's right over here. This is going to be where the sound is. The sound is towards the center, and it's going to show me basically how this is affected towards the speakers. If I were to press play again, you'll notice that down below you see only the stereo moving because it's all meant to be left and right. And again, this is the volume for all 6 channels. Let me come back over here and show you what happens if I move it around. I'm going to move it towards the back. And if I move it towards the back, you see over here it's towards the back. Matter of fact, if I move it around any way I want, you can see where it's putting it spatially. You can't hear it, though. Why can't you hear it? You can't hear it because you don't have a 5.1 surround sound system hooked up at home. And you're like, well, wait a second. You've got a 5.1 surround sound system hooked up here, but it's not been configured yet. Let me show you what happens if I do this. I go to Edit Preferences, Audio Hardware. You're going to notice that if I click on Audio Channel Mapping, that it doesn't actually show me anything except my stereo, channel 1 and channel 2, which is stereo, which is what's going to look like when you get home. For me to make this work, if I did have surround sound to WAS API, it will like this. I will change it to Sound Blaster. And now if I go to Audio Channel Mapping, you'll notice that I have 6 channels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I've mapped those channels to left, right, center. LFE is the subwoofer for the low frequencies, and left surround and right surround. And you can see they're mapped accordingly, and hopefully they're the right ways. Actually, I don't think that's actually right. I do believe that the 3rd channel is left surround. I do believe that 5 is center, and 6 is subwoofer, and 4 is left surround, and 5 is right surround. And that's really important if I were to really care about this. I think I did this wrong. I'm sorry, that was 3 and 4. 3 and 4. And this allows me to identify things as I go forward. Now let's try it again. So we'll see how this plays out. So that's the left surround, that's the right surround, that's the right, that's the left, and that's the center. And as I move it around, you can see if it's directly in the center, all the speakers play. If I move it towards the front, only the front speakers play. If I move it towards the rear, only the rear speakers play. If I actually put it in the hole, only that speaker plays. And that's really rare that you would do that. But this allows us to come around here and to choose how on edge our audio is and how full our audio is. Does this make sense? So I'm basically, and when I do this, it's very interesting to realize that when I'm doing this is it's for the whole channel. So if I leave it there, it stays there. So if I come over here and put this on this channel, and I put this over here on this channel, I can then say, I want the elephant to come from the left. And now the elephant is located on the left side. And if I were to bring up the cat's meow, and put it here, I can say the cat's meow comes from the right, but more towards the front. And if I come down here, I could say that I want the piano falling down the stairs to be way in the back. And if I were to come back over here and rewind and play this, now each of these tracks is placing the audio where I want it spatially. Will I be able to hear it fully mixed? No, I won't, because I don't have a 5.1 surround sound. But I'll be able to visualize it in my head, and I'll even be able to see how the audio is mixed down below where the levels are. Let's try it again. And you're like, wait a second, how come the middle one didn't ever move? That's the low frequency. We haven't given it any low frequency. And that's actually not uncommon. Low frequency actually isn't always encoded inside of the audio clip. Sometimes low frequency is just extracted afterwards by the subwoofer system. I'm actually not worried about whether or not you put in low frequencies or not. A lot of times it'll come on its own. Oh, wait a second, there it is. There's a low frequency. I can add some low frequency in right there. I can say how much of this channel is low frequency. There we go. Let me come back over here to track 1, and let's increase the amount of low frequency we have. So there you go. There you go. There's adds the low frequency in. So we've said which channel is contributing to the subwoofer. And so our piano is going to have a lot of subwoofer in it. And there you go. Now this is a project file. This file, when I go to hit save, is being saved as a SESX file. It's an Audition session file. It is dependent on the original waveform files. So you can come back here and you can edit it, but like working in Premiere Pro, you don't want to lose the bits and pieces that you were working with or it won't know what to do. So far, this should be fairly straightforward. You have multiple tracks, you put items on those tracks, and each of those tracks you can change the volume for. If I come over here, you can change the volume for the track. Obviously, you can always go down, never go up because you can spike it. You can change the location of where that track is located, and there you go. Does that make sense? The last part is the weird part. It's the most advanced part. Not everyone's going to want to do this, but at some point you are going to want to think it through. So let's say for a moment that I've got this piano that's about to fall. And right now, where's my piano? Right now my piano is in the back. What if I want my piano to animate? What if I want the location of the piano to move over time? So what I can do is I can come over here and I can stretch. You notice that when I'm using the scroll wheel on my mouse, I just see track 1, 2, 3, and 4. But then when I scroll up, I see more. First, I see the volume control and the spatial control, and now I see the default stereo input, and now I see the word read. And this is where it gets fun. Because instead of read, scroll down so you can see it. Instead of read, I'm going to put this on to write. And what this means is that when I press play, that this track is going to be a live control of whatever I change, and it's going to create keyframe animations for the spatial sound. Watch. I'm prepped to go. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to play. I'm going to use my space bar on my keyboard to get it going, and then I'm going to come over here and move it all the way around. And if I hit stop, now it's on touch. And if I go back to read, you can see, well, you can't see anything. You can't see what this is at all. And the reason is that when we look at this, what are we looking at? Well, what we're looking at is just our standard output. And what does this line mean? That line means volume. Well, if I were to come over here, I should be able to visualize not the volume, right click. One moment, I want to make sure I do it right. So right now, I'm looking at the volume. What I want to do is I want to change the volume to one of the other things that I would look at. All right, so next to read, if I click on this little triangle, you're going to see where it says show envelopes. Now the envelope is this line up here, and the line is volume, which of course is not what we animated. What did we animate? We animated the pan. And if I were to look at the pan center, well, that didn't do anything. If I were to look at the pan radius, oh, look at that. That's the animation for the pan radius. That's the animation for the pan angle. Not for the pan center, and not for the pan LFE, because that's down here. We didn't change it dynamically. But we did change the angle and the stereo spread, and that's the two things that we changed. So that is the animation. Now, why am I showing this to you? Two reasons. The animation is assigned to the track, not the contents of the track. If I were to move this over here, those animations stay over there. Does that make sense? So you need to realize that if you wanted to reanimate that, you would have to go through and reanimate it, which I can easily do, by the way. I could come over here, and I could say, I can change it from read to write, and there you go. Make sure you set it back to read afterwards. And you can see that it changed. So this is going to allow you to do things like create footsteps that walk across the room, create a bee that buzzes around your head, close and far. And again, you can go back and you can animate different things. You can animate the volume. You can animate the different stuff that you needed to create the effects that you want. Our exercise is very simple. Without the benefit of a surround sound system, with just this in front of us, can we craft a 1-minute soundscape? No words, no talking, no language. 1 minute using only sounds that are in the public domain, Creative Commons 0, or sounds that you created yourself. They are going to be layered. Those layers can change volume. Those layers can be, you can literally work with tracks where everything is just placed and create a very good soundscape. Because you can have many, many tracks in many, many places. Or you can animate those tracks as well. So what do you do when you're done? Please remember that also when you're doing this, that not only are you going to be moving where are you in space, which you notice is changing the radius and the angle. So the angle is over here, and the radius is over here. Those are the two things that are really changing. And then again, you get to choose what you want the subwoofer to do. The LFE, what do you want the subwoofer to get its noise from? In this case, maybe I don't want the meow to be coming from the bass. Maybe I want the meow to be coming from the piano. And while we can set it up that it will just grab whatever the low frequencies are and make them the subwoofer, the best control is to be in control of everything. When I'm done, I can save my project, and should keep saving your project along the way. But when you're very done, when you're ready to turn it in, you are going to do an export as a multi-track mixdown of the entire session. At this point, it's going to give you a brand new option, and we are going to use the AIFF file format. That's the one we're going to use. I like the AIFF file format. And if I click on OK, it's going to mix it down to a 5.1 file. Now, while I still have all of these multi-layers over here, each track laid out to do whatever I want, if I were to open up that file, oh look, it's already opened up. This is what that looks like. Left, right, center, low frequency, left surround, right surround. Those are the 6 tracks. And it is agnostic to the system. It will play that when I hook this up properly. Again, this is all in your mind's eye. And when we're done, we're going to set up the 5.1 surround system. We're going to put 4 or 5 chairs in the middle of it. We're going to play everybody's minute once. I'm going to play everybody's minute a second time. And that's the assignment. And it really is about trying to visualize, spatialize the audio. What do you want where, and how can you set that balance?